Norse mythology depicts multiple gods, and even different types of gods, from the Aesir to the Vanir, with powers ranging from shape-shifting to thunder control, flight, and guiding a sun, to even going as far as having the days named after them and slaying mighty frost giants. Norse gods, though they are powerful, might not be as indestructible or immortal as you might think. While Olympians and even Egyptian gods tend to have lives that do not age, the Aesir and Vanir do not have such a luxury. It is noted that an Aesir will grow old and slowly wither and die over time. So how, you might ask, do these gods prevent themselves from aging into oblivion? How does Thor, how does Odin, and all of the others, Balder, Tyr, keep their youth and stay as powerful and incredible as they have been for centuries without even seeming to have the slightest bit of growth come across them? Well, that, my friends, comes from the power of Idunn. Idunn is the goddess of spring and rejuvenation, known as the Rejuvenating One. Married to the great god Bragi, god of poetry and eloquence, which is also a form of how gods live after their deaths. The reason she is so important is that she guards a set of magic apples which she grows. These magic apples are so powerful that they can bring youth back to even the great Aesir, the gods themselves. Idunn, being the only god or goddess that could cultivate the apples, made her the single individual allowing the gods to keep their eternal youth, with no one in the entire Aesir or Vanir able to take her place. Being one of the most important figures in all of Norse mythology when it comes to the state of the gods themselves. This is how the gods have their form of pseudo-immortality. With the power that Idunn's apples brings, a god can go from wrinkling, old, decrepit, nearly dying, back to their original youthful state. Idunn herself is so important. When Loki got into a fight with a Jotun named Thiazi, he had to make a deal with them in order to prevent the fight from getting even worse. He would lure Idunn out into the forest where the giant would be waiting, and allow him to abduct her and take her to Jotunheim. With her and the apples missing, all of the gods went from their glory and mighty estates to withering old fellows. Without the apples, the Aesir and the Vanir were rapidly going to age to death. This prompted them to seek Loki and confront him and force him to travel to Jotunheim, where he would have to rescue Idunn himself. Being a shapeshifter, Loki would eventually turn himself into a falcon or a sparrow in some different variations. And then when he made his way up to Jotunheim, he turned Idunn into a nut and used that to bring her home safely. As Loki would near the end of his trip back to Asgard, Thiazi would realize what had happened, as a servant informed him that a large falcon had flown out of the building only hours ago. With this, Thiazi would don his eagle skin and fly to catch up, racing down the falcon in order to try and take them out before they reached Asgard. As he approached, the Asgardians realized that if they didn't intervene, then likely Thiazi would claim his prize. So they built a pile of wood and set it ablaze right after Loki flew over the walls of Asgard. This fire took Thiazi out of the sky, where the Asgardians promptly killed him. With her returned and the magic apples brought back, the gods regained their youth, still angry with Loki. This shows just quite how powerful these apples are and how important they are to the Aesir and the Vanir themselves. Without these apples, they just became mostly mortal and quickly started to wither. This shows that the Norse gods had much to look after and why Odin was so worried when Ragnarok was coming. He was facing his own death, and if someone even such as Idunn were to pass away, everything the Aesir had held would fall apart. So the reason that this is interesting is the fact that even though Odin, known for his might and magic with all of the runes that he's learned from all of his travels, his attempts to change and sway prophecy, no matter what, he himself could not do anything to replace the apples that Idunn protected. They would have withered and died without them being returned, showing just how important Idunn is. Now you might be wondering, what happens during Ragnarok? Does Idunn pass away? Do they survive? Idunn survives and keeps growing the apples in order to help the new gods stay youthful and grow into the new age. But even though Idunn is still around, there's something that all of us and the Norse gods can have in common. And that is the fact that time comes for everyone. So just know that even the Norse gods had to watch their backs and make sure to eat a healthy snack now and again. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something and enjoy this new format. Idunn is a surprisingly under talked about character in Norse mythology, even though they are so prevalent inside of the mythos itself. I hope you learned something, and that you can take this information with you on into the future. I also hope that you all have a good night.